I am exceptionally excited for today's video because we are going to be talking about something that I am so passionate about, and that is high impact glowy chrome eyeshadows. And I think this is my first time doing a dedicated video on this topic. Over the past couple of years, I have become enamored with these types of shades. A lot of them actually can double as highlighters, especially if you are looking for something that's editorial and show-stopping, or just honestly a lot of fun to wear. Some of these shades are duochromes, some are multichromes, but they all have an intense glow to them that I have been really drawn to. I'm going to show you some detailed swatches, talk about the textures and the formulas, and you're going to see me apply every single shade because I just feel like it adds to the experience. I will have all the shades listed in the description box, and my discount code is the same for all of them. I'm going to pop it up on the screen now. All except the Dieverune codes are affiliated. Okay, I have really been meaning to talk more about the shades from Sheen Effect. This is a sea beauty brand that I have become so drawn to in the past couple of years. They make absolutely beautiful single shadows, and a lot of the shades have sort of a semi-sheerness to them, which makes them extra glowy. This is the shade Twilight City, and it's become somewhat of a cult favorite, and for good reason. It has a very pale base and a strong green shift. A lot of the shades from Sheen Effect do have a sort of emollient texture to them, and the reason I like to mention that is because people can get creasing with emollient shades. So I do feel like it's important to mention. Now, if you weren't going to wear the shade on the lids, you could totally wear it as a highlighting shade, and I personally would still get a lot of use out of it if I was only going to use it for that purpose. But this is definitely my favorite shade from the brand. Okay, the next shade I have from Sheen Effect is called Night Elves. This is another shade that I have mentioned several times. It's a very glowy blue iridescent, and I have a particular affinity for this shade because, well, for one, I really love blue eyeshadow, but I really like that this is a blue iridescent that doesn't have a white base, so I can use a shade like this as a highlighter without much concern that I'm gonna have a white cast with it. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy white-based iridescents, I just have a little bit more flexibility with shades like this, so I've come to really appreciate shades that have a semi-sheer base. And the texture of this shade feels exactly like Twilight City. It's very high impact. Even on the first swatch or application, you have a fair bit of sparkle and a whole lot of glow. Okay, the third and final shade that I'm going to mention from Sheen Effect is Endless Summer. And I definitely had a hard time narrowing it down to just a few shades, which is probably why I need to do this style of video more often. Endless Summer came out somewhat recently. Sheen Effect released these shades that have a sort of ombre of 3 different shades in a pan. And the end result is something very cool. You end up with a very glowy shade that has multicolored sparkles. And all of the shades that they came out with in this small collection are beautiful. I just really like Endless Summer. It just has a certain kind of fiery glow to it. There's been a number of brands to do shades like these recently, and I can see why, because aesthetically they're so appealing. I think the Sheen Effect ones are done very nicely. Okay, the next shade I have is from a new to me brand. This is also a sea beauty brand that I picked up from Look Healthy store. The brand is called Romantic Beauty or RMT Beauty. This is the shade 1. I was immediately drawn to it because it's a glowy blue. There is no wetness to this formula. I would say that it is more sparkly than the Sheen Effect shades, and it's very glowy. This one reminds me a little bit of Night Elves, but I would say that Night Elves has a bit more purple in it. This one is much more straight blue leaning. I would say even it has a hint of green. I haven't tried any other shades from this brand, but honestly, I was quite impressed and I would like to in the future. If you're curious to try some of these brands, definitely check out Look Healthy Store, CBD Mall, and even YESSTYLE. You will find all kinds of really fun eyeshadow. Okay, and I couldn't make a video like this and not talk about the shades from Dieverune. And honestly, it was so hard to pick just a few shades because I feel like when it comes to this particular kind of eyeshadow, Dieverune does them so well. This is the drop highlighter, and it's the exact same shade, exact same formula that's in Dewdrops 1. That's a palette of all iridescents that can be used as eyeshadows or highlighting shades. And this shade is so special because not only is it so incredibly glowy, it's what I would describe as an ultraviolet, but it's also incredibly smooth in texture. And so many people that I know have told me how much they love this shade. And the formula is honestly hard to come by from what I've heard, but it is part of why I love Drop so much and part of what makes it unique. The next shade I have from Dieverune is called Downprour. It came out around springtime last year. It's a green, blue, and purple shifting iridescent shade. Now, honestly, this shade is still pretty smooth. It does have more texture to it than Drop. I wouldn't describe it as flaky in the least. Maybe it has just the tiniest bit of emollients to it, but not like the Sheen Effect, not as much. This one has an incredible amount of glow to it. This is the type of shade I have to be a little bit careful with when I'm using it on the face because I can get a white cast, but if you apply it with a light hand, then it's not bad. And I do like that this one is sold as a single shadow. I feel like it also would have been great in their Dewdrops palette, but sometimes it's nice to just be able to get one shade instead of having to get a whole palette. Okay, the last shade that I included from Dieverune is called Dew, and this is in a palette. It's the Dewdrops 2 palette. I tried not to include too many palettes in this video, but this shade is exceptionally glowy. It has a very pale purple base, and when you look at it in the pan, you might think that this is going to be a purple leaning iridescent, but it actually has a very strong green shift, and the texture of this shade is very smooth. It actually reminds me quite a bit of the texture of Drop. I don't experience a white cast with this shade because it's not a white based iridescent, so when I'm using it as a face highlighter, I don't have to worry about that. And fun fact, Chapel Roan's makeup artist actually used this shade for one of her concerts. So incredibly cool, and just goes to show how show-stopping the shades from Dieverune are. Alright, I have several shadows to include from Terra Moons, and they have a lot of great shades that fall under this category. And in the past couple of years, I feel like they've been focusing on trying to make high-impact shades that have a smooth texture. I really appreciate that because I do feel like they work for more people. This is a shade that came out just within the past couple of weeks. It's called Heart Nebula, and it has a beautiful pale purple base and quite a fiery toned shift to it. You get some yellow, some orange, and even some red. The sparkle in this shade is quite fine. It doesn't feel textured. I can see why this shade has been such a crowd favorite. Here's what it looks like in another lighting, just so you can see those shifts I was talking about. You even have a hint of green. Really cool shade. And for my look, I used it over a blue base, and I love the way that that came out. Okay, the next shade I have from Terra Moons is called Chromosphere, and this one actually came out last year. It's a very unique shade to the line. I've not seen them do a shade anything like this before. This shade does have more texture to it compared to Heart Nebula. As you can see on my fingertip, it does have a little bit of flake, but not much. It smooths out and applies very well, and this I would describe as having a green base with a strong golden shift. The glow factor in this one is real. I feel like this shade in particular is such a great one for going into the spring and the summer months. It just has a certain lightness to it, brightness to it, and like I said, I feel like it's definitely one of the more unique shades from Terra Moons. And listen, that's saying a lot because they have a lot of unique shades. Okay, the next shade I have from Terra Moons is called Doppler Blue. This is definitely a shade I've talked about on my channel several times because it's a glowy blue. It's one of my favorite glowy blues from Terra Moons because, again, it doesn't have a white base to it. It's one that I feel like translates well as a highlighting shade on me, especially on the face if I want to use it that way. And as you can see from the swatch, this shade isn't very sparkly, and I don't mind having a few shades like these because sometimes it's nice to have a highlighting shade that doesn't have a whole lot of sparkle, but it has more glow than sparkle, and I feel like this falls under that category. I just love a glowy blue purple shade so much, what can I say? There's a reason why I've included so many in this video. And I don't know, I do feel like this kind of shade is having somewhat of a moment now. I feel like a lot of brands have come out with their version of this kind of shade. Okay, the next shade I have from Terra Moons is called M42, and this came out within the last couple of months. It's a green-brown duochrome. It's incredibly sparkly. It's definitely one of my favorite versions of this kind of shade. Clionadh also has one that I really love that I included in this video. And if you do have brown skin like me, you can use shades like these as highlighting shades. I actually find that they work quite nicely, and it's something that I think I'll try more often. I tried that with ColourPop's Rooftop Cocktails, which is a classic green-brown duochrome as well. Really loved that. And in case you're curious, if you're looking for a shade like this that doesn't have much sparkle, then Rooftop Cocktails is a good option. In general, I feel like blue-brown duochromes and green-brown duochromes are having a bit of a moment right now, and I'm very here for it. Okay, last but not least, from Terra Moons, we have the shade Spectral Shift. This one is another one that completely took my breath away when I saw it swatched. It came out last year around the time that Chromosphere came out. It does have slightly more texture to it, and in fact I would say that texture-wise it does feel kind of like Chromosphere. It does have a little bit of flakiness to it. It's not crazy, and definitely nowhere near the flakiest kind of shade that Terra Moons has come out with. This and Chromosphere I honestly feel like work better on the eyes than as face highlights, but they're so glowy and shifty and intense that I had to include them. This has an aqua base and a strong golden and green shift. A really cool shade, and one that I think deserves more love. It's not one that I hear people talk about too often. All right, now we're going to go ahead and finish up with several shades from Clionadh, starting off with Vineyard. Vineyard is the green-brown duochrome that I was mentioning earlier, and this one, in comparison to the one from Terra Moons, I would say has more warmth to it. It shifts more of a grungy toned green with a hint of gold. Vineyard is an earth vibrant. I really love earth vibrant shadows because I like to think of them as neutrals with a twist. They bring something sort of elevated and different to neutrals. They tend to be quite approachable texture-wise. Now, this shade is still quite sparkly. As you can see, it really does pack a punch, and just as I mentioned with the Terra Moon shade, I think that on brown skin, it does work really well as a highlighting shade because of that brown base. Okay, next shade I have from Clionadh also happens to be an earth vibrant. This is the shade Archway. It's got a smooth texture, but it's still quite sparkly. It's something that I've noticed with some of the more recent earth vibrants is that they pack more of a punch than some of the older ones. They're sparklier, more high impact. This has a very kind of grungy base, and you get a strong bronzy golden shift, maybe just with a hint of orange. And this is another shade where if you have brown skin and you just use a light dusting, it would be a really pretty highlighting shade as well. I honestly really enjoy discovering this because it's fun to get multiple types of uses out of these products, especially when the texture of the shadows works as a face highlight as well. All right, next shade I included is Mural. This is another one that I've talked about several times before, and for good reason. It's been a favorite of mine for years. Other brands definitely have their version of this kind of shadow. And by that, I mean a minty shadow that has a fiery shift. I do find that the texture of a lot of the Clionadh Electric Multichromes, which is the category that Mural is in, is quite approachable. And I like that because I feel like if you are someone who does prefer a smooth texture, you're going to find some shadows with some really cool, kind of intense chrome shifts in the electric multichrome line from the brand. And here's Mural in another lighting just so that you can really see that crazy beautiful shift. Okay, last but certainly not least, we have Aureate from Clionadh. When I first tried this shade, I want to say a little over a year ago, I was truly in disbelief. I feel like this shade honestly was one of the first shades I tried in this category that made me feel like, oh, I am truly in love with chromes that have this intensity and this brightness to them. Aureate is described as an electric duochrome. I truly hope to see more shades like this from Clionadh. It's described as having a gray base with a strong golden shift. And I feel like for however beautiful and intense this shade looks on camera, it's even more stunning in person. If you've also tried this shade and concur with me, definitely let me know. And I know some people are going to be surprised that I didn't include Myrrh in this list, but since I mentioned Drop from Dieverune and it's a very similar type of shade, I felt like it was okay to leave it out of this video because those are very similar shades. Okay, now that we've had a chance to go through everything, I would love to hear what you think of my picks. I don't consider this to be a comprehensive video, but if you enjoyed seeing this style of video, definitely let me know. I totally could see myself making this somewhat of a series. So definitely let me know in the comments. I could spend all day talking about shadows like these. I feel like I'm nerding out in my happy zone. As always, I really hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.